Welcome to TrueCoach TV. I am sitting down here in Boulder, Colorado, but I'm sitting down here with Erwin Regidor, and he's sitting down in Shanghai, China. And we got connected through the Strength in Numbers group that TrueCoach is working with. If you guys haven't jumped on that, make sure you do. But he's over there in Shanghai, and they are a couple months in front of us in the States and obviously other parts in the world, and where they are at in dealing with COVID-19. Erwin's a remote coach and a personal trainer, a group fitness instructor, and has been in the game for quite a while. And I really was hoping that he can share not only what the market is like in China a few months ahead of us, but also what some of the strategies he's been able to do to maintain this level of attention, where he's really only lost a couple people, which is pretty normal in this setting, and it's kind of just business as usual, converting his in-person clients into remote coaching clients and kind of picking that right back up where things left off. And so want to make sure that he can share some of the knowledge around, hey, what's going on? What can we all expect? What should we all really kind of focus on with COVID-19 wherever we're at in the world? And then I want him to talk about switching his clients over from in-person to a remote coaching setting and the communication between creating that experience for those people. And then if you get into it, we might talk about how he changed his rates and everything else going from there. So without further ado, Erwin, tell everybody who you are, where you're at, how you got into fitness.
Hey, Sam, thanks for having me. And so, again, my name's Erwin. I have been in Shanghai now since 2013. I started as a group fitness coach coaching CrossFit classes back in 2010. So randomly got approached summer of 2012 to come out to Shanghai. At the time, I was brought out to be the head coach and program director for, it was the second affiliate in CrossFit affiliate in Shanghai. I was doing group coaching, one-on-one training from 2013 up until 2017. 2017, I decided to leave most of the affiliates the last affiliate that I was at. And from there moved into I wanted to get into more one-on-one coaching. So 2017 left that affiliate, and then pretty much from there really just jumped into remote coaching. It was something I didn't really kind of advertise. It was more so when I left the last gym that I was at, I had a following there that people still wanted to work with me. And at the time I was actually going through the OPEC CCP certification. Nice. So kind of by going through that education route, I had an idea of kind of what I wanted to do. I had no systems in place, honestly. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of a learning experience from that point on. But I was fortunate enough in terms of the clients that I had a following, so I didn't have to really kind of search for people to come along in that avenue. And yeah, it's been doing that since 2017. I started my own remote coaching business summer of 2018, and pretty much working with folks remotely, and then a few folks in person as well. So a bit of a hybrid coach.
Nice. That's awesome, man. It's so great to see that taking a leap across the world has panned out for you. And I'm sure that was not a scary decision in your life. But you guys seem super happy, and you're moving right along. So that's super rad.
Totally cool.
What was it that, how did you meet someone that took you to China, right? Like, of all places.
So that's actually a cool story. I went to, so the gal that asked me to come out here, I went to the same kindergarten and 8th grade as her. So she knew that I was into fitness. I had done amateur bodybuilding in college, and so she knew I was into the whole fitness thing. She wanted to meet up with me and just talk about this thing about CrossFit. So she hadn't heard about CrossFit, or she had heard about CrossFit. She didn't really know what it was, but she wanted to talk to me about it, and she thought I might know something about it since I was into fitness. I'd already been coaching since 2010, so it was interesting. Like when she asked me, it's like, let's meet up and talk. Basically, met up with her. We talked about it a little bit. I told her kind of what I know I was actually coaching, and literally at the end of that conversation, she's like, "Hey, so do you want to come out to China and be our head coach and director of programming?" This was October.
Just so nonchalant.
Summer, yeah, super nonchalant. And I was kind of like, what? So this was summer 2012. I went and visited October 2012, and they flew me out February 2013. And it ended up in Shanghai, and gym opened up in June 2013. And it's funny because when I actually got out there in October, I'd done no research. So for me, China was like, I just thought, okay, countryside, you know, it's ignorant, right? Super ignorant. Countryside, like, okay, what am I doing in Shanghai? I get here and it's like a huge city. I was like, oh crap, you know? So this is
One of the
like,
largest
you know,
cities.
yeah, well, this is pretty big. So I mean, I think at the time, was it 2012, 2013, I was I was 28, single, no kids. You know, why not? You know, doing something that I enjoy doing, and it ended up being great. I mean, I was able to make a really great career as a, you know, as a fitness coach. I met my wife out here. We were saying she's from Milwaukee. I met her and we got married in
You moved all the way
2016.
from China, from LA, to meet a girl from Milwaukee.
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
I love it. That's so cool. I mean, it just goes to show, guys, you've heard Jim Kroll and I talk about this. You heard Ben and I talk about this, that relationships, they're everything, right? Like kindergarten, 8th grade, like the only game you had back then was just don't pull her hair and kick her in the shin. And
Yeah.
like, be a good person, but like to then reconnect and like, oh, you do this thing. And for her to
Yeah.
remember that this is a part of your identity, this is a part of who you are, and that you told her like, hey, this is a part of what I do. And then magically, like you didn't know where it was going. And next thing you know, like, yeah, I was kind of just vetting you. I wanted you and you're like, wait, what? Okay. Right.
No, exactly. And that's the thing. I mean, like I didn't even know that you could do that, like coach and do that kind of stuff abroad. So when I was like, really? You know, like it was, you know, cool opportunity. And like I said, I wouldn't give it up for the world. Like I'm glad I made the decision to come out.
That's so freaking cool. I love it. I love a good story too. And how like
Yeah.
immediately like, oh damn, that's cool. I'm like, it is cool, right? Like because and I teach a lot of things about storytelling. Because inevitably that's the thing that makes us connect to others. Right. And like there's this amazing thing, like I'm sure it was a great talking point. A, both of you spoke English, but B, you're both in the States. Like it is something easy for you and your wife to connect to. But with your clients, like you have different stories. I'm sure there's a lot of fascination about the States. They're learning from you in that setting, right? And so, but if you don't have that ability to connect and talk about what you do and who you are, you never really get depth enough to where now it was the relationships that you have with all these people that made it so easy for them to come out of Chinese New Year, where they were already on a break, to then roll right into remote coaching and a different thing because it's with you. So talk to us a little bit about the fitness industry in China and what that is, what it looks like.
Like present
yeah, like what it looks like, how maybe how it's different in the States, or what, or maybe some key things that are different.
Right. So I want to say when I first got out here, I think fitness itself was just kind of on the rise, right? So 2013, it's 22 now. Within the last 7 years, the service industry of fitness has been going up, right? So when I first got out, there was, you know, things about, you know, let's say just the female Chinese women, like, you know, should they work out, should they not work out, you know, et cetera. I think at least with CrossFit coming in that sense, it kind of bridge that gap to, like, you know, the whole strong women, etc. In terms of how I see fitness now, it's crazy because within the last, let's say 7 years, 2013, you know, let's say CrossFit Inc. came in, right? From 2013 up until like the 2018, that for first 5 years, it felt like the exact boom that happened in the US and North America with like just affiliates, right? Or it was crazy. Within the last, let's say 3 to 5 years, fitness itself is going up in the sense that you have your F45s coming in, right? So you already have F45s in China. You have some Orange Theory. So there's a lot of that type of group fitness, kind of, you know, that hit fitness. At the same time, you also have some, a lot of niche boutique gyms here as well. So you have like some, you know, like kettlebell places. You have some, you know, I don't know what's called, like the clubs, you know.
Oh, steel clubs, yep, Armax and On It clubs and Armax and Idea Fit, not Arm, Armax and Tech Fit.
Yeah. So you have that kind of stuff coming in. You have, you know, Animal Flow that's popular here. MoveNat. A lot of these things that are in the US that find their kind of niche here in China. At the same time, you also have a lot of, I want to say almost like automated fitness places. So there's a gym chain called here, it's called Super Monkey, right? So it's essentially, it's like you have a class schedule, you scan the QR code, and then you go in, and then you're in that for that class, and you have an instructor there, and you can choose from whatever. What I've seen is a lot of Chinese people also, they like kind of like the Les Mills type classes, body pump type stuff. Those group classes are, are fairly popular in itself. CrossFit, like I said, CrossFit was big, and then personal training also is fairly big. And then you also have your, kind of commercial gyms that's similar to like a, Planet Fitness, 24-hour fitness, etc.
Yeah.
As far as let's say remote fitness is concerned, I'm not too sure how big the market is for remote coaching itself. And I say that because what I've noticed is that the market here, they like to have the personal trainer to some degree, especially like some of the Chinese clients, they want the in-person, right? For them, that's what they want, as opposed to working remotely, for the most part, at least.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how like just different places in the world where fitness is at, or if it's further or farther behind. I get to talk quite a bit of international fitness. Mike Fitch from Animal Flow is like my next door neighbor here in Boulder.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we hang out quite a bit, and he's one of my best friends. And so, but like, just the game is so different over there, right? Like it's not the US, but like it's not the same. It's just slightly different, right? So it's always cool to see like, how different things be successful and what not, what is and what isn't successful based on cultural norms, right? Like obviously just the women getting strong thing was a few years later in China than it was in the US, right? Like it took a minute for that thing to get through, and you're like, oh yeah, when you're saying it, I'm like, wait, the timeline of you getting there, that should have already, oh no, it hadn't happened yet over there. Like it's wild. You like that had already hit its spot.
And I mean, even like with CrossFit coming in, that was like one of the biggest things, like, are they going to respond well to it? And, it did blow up. So
that's
for sure.
That's because that's one of the best parts of CrossFit is, building that message that women should be strong, and it's okay. And there's nothing non-masculine about, or masculine or feminine about it. Like, it's great. Do what you want to do.
Yeah. Exactly.
Talk to us about COVID-19 and what it was like coming into China, because China's obviously massive amounts of people, and what the response has been, and from a fitness community, what the response has been.
So in terms of COVID-19, I didn't really keep a big track of kind of exactly when it started. So my idea of when it started is, let's say, like I mentioned before, the week before Chinese New Year, the week of, January 2023, that's when the city of Wuhan was actually, put on state lockdown. Now, when I say lockdown, I want to say my perception is that that entire city and the Hubei province, like they were shut down. There was no going in and out. They shut off all transportation, everything coming, in and out of there. So pretty much during that week, it was the week right before Chinese New Year. And then for us in Chinese New Year, for that week, it's pretty much a ghost town anyway, right? Because it's a mass migration of people coming, either that are in Shanghai, they go back to their hometowns, or vice versa. So for the people that were staying in Shanghai, it's like, okay, it's going to be normal ghost town. It's kind of like a staycation if you don't want to be around a lot of people. And then I want to say like the 23rd that happened, and on Friday the 24th is normally when a lot of businesses close already, right? So the following Monday, I want to say the Monday and Tuesday, I had gone into the gym that I work at, and I was, coached a few classes there. And then on the 29th, they said, okay, they had to shut down all operations. So that was kind of when you felt that, okay, it's just kind of serious, and it's escalating a bit, right? From what I know at that time, that Chinese New Year week, everything was shut down. And then they actually extended the Chinese New Year until February 8th, right? So normally things would have been going back to normal February 3, everyone would have been working, etc. But everything was still closed. So pretty much in terms of, let's say, what we were experiencing within this kind of first wave is we just didn't know what was happening, right? We knew that cases in Wuhan were going up. We knew that there were some cases within other parts of China and whatnot. In terms of the fitness industry, because the week was normally closed, like no one really thought about it. And pretty much, as far as I know, let's say if the start of, business operation had been February 3, they were just kind of waiting on the government to really tell them, can we open up, what can we do, right? A lot of gyms, so let's say these commercial gyms that have normally running classes like, a Les Mills or a body pump type class, a lot of them went into a live streaming format. So what I've seen is a lot of people are doing, Zoom now, Skype call, they're trying to navigate which is going to work best.
Yep.
I personally don't know what apps are in the US, but in China, there's like a million different types of apps, like, that's like live streaming, this and that. So a lot of those studios, they did run, from a client of mine that actually works within the, commercial gym industry. He told me a lot of them did host classes online, right? As far as I know, if you were a personal trainer, and I'm only speaking from, let's say, the Chinese personal trainers that I know of, I don't know if they kind of went through the same, I guess, panic that I saw, like from, Facebook groups and whatnot of the fitness industry in the US is like, what do we do? It was more so like, we can't do anything kind of deal. So I don't know exactly how proactive they were in terms of switching over, like, okay, we're going to do classes online. We're going to do this. The gym that I was at, they closed down, and, pretty much within the last, I'd say 2 to 3 weeks or so is when some of these other gyms were finally able to open up, but a lot of them were still opening on a limited basis, right? So at least from, government protocol, there was a certain entry exit type thing, right? You could only have 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 people in 60 to 90-minute increments. And then as you were doing that, you'd have to get, temperature checked at entry, and then you'd have to wear a mask kind of when you're working out. Now, a lot of the gyms, let's say if they were like a CrossFit or boutique type gym, they couldn't run any group classes. So I knew someone like with that's the manager of F45. They couldn't do group classes because obviously, you need to have the distance. So they ran their challenges via online. Again, I'm not too sure what platform they use, but it was kind of the same deal. They had their own community that they had to really manage, and people were really just kind of what people are doing now, right? Really trying to foster that community that they did have. As far as like, let's say clients who were either there or not there, I'm not too sure like how they navigated that. But I mean, right now, I believe this week, commercial gym branches did start opening up. I don't know exactly the number or which ones, but I do know that they started to open up. I just don't know exactly if they're operating as, as they normally would. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, with trainers over there, obviously a lot of coaches over here do end up coaching part-time. They're part-time coaches, but either hybrid online, probably serving tables or doing something secondary to maintain a revenue stream. Is that this common life in China as well as a trainer, or what's that look like over there?
With the expats that are trainers, I want to say some of them that are, group coaches, CrossFit, F45, whatever. I want to say some of them have another gig, right? There are some that only do those group classes as well. As far as the personal trainers go, I want to say for most of the personal trainers, that's just their main source of income. Like I said, some of my friends and clients who are, let's say, regular personal trainers or just employees at a commercial gym, they didn't have nothing going on. So in terms of what they were doing, I don't know. At the same time, I'm guessing, my assumptions again that some of them, they have family here, so at the same time they still have that family support. I think that may be something that's different than the US, right? So if you're a personal trainer, let's say in Shanghai, some of them are mostly like, let's say, Shanghainese or something. So it's not like their family's like far away, they have that family support to kind of go back on, versus like, holy crap, I have, really nothing, and it's scary, it's a super scary situation to be in, you know what I mean?
And that's what most people are up against, right? And I didn't want to like make it present for you that way, but like it is, like it's something that does
Yeah.
need to be addressed, that it is a fucking scary situation. And a
Yeah.
lot of people are in a spot where they don't know what the future is going to hold. And it's very fortunate that you've been blessed to be able to continue on, right? Like what a nice feature for like, oh yeah, the remote coaching thing, you got into it early enough to where it's not like a new thing for you right now. So you already had existing people, and now you're being able to easily convert your hybrid people. Let's talk about that conversation you had with your in-person clients and switching them into a remote coaching option. How did you tell them about what the difference was going to be and what the service was going to be different? And then how did you come to a pricing that made sense?
Right. So basically, I mean, for them, like I mentioned before, they were a lot of the in-person clients that I did have, they're already going to be gone on holiday, right? So it was just kind of as usual. Okay, I'll see you when you come back. For a lot of them, what happened is, you know, some of them are like UK, France, some were in, you know, the US, and some other parts of Southeast Asia they kind of just went to. And in that time, they kind of like, okay, we're just going to hang out and do whatever. As soon as this thing kind of happened, and again, coming from a perspective, like we don't know when the gyms are going to open up. It was more so, I really just went into the sense of like, okay, let's have a talk. This is what's happening in Shanghai right now. You know, I don't know when the gyms are going to be coming, opening up again. What is your situation where you're at? Do you have, you know, travel restrictions, etc.? For those guys, the biggest thing is like, even for my in-person clients, I already had them on TrueCoach. So in terms of, you know, having that platform, it wasn't really new. They kind of knew how it would be to see something on an app and see the demo videos and like do the exercises if they needed to do that. So for some of them, I just asked, hey, you know, if you're going to be out for an extended period of time, you know, do you want, you know, workouts written for you, right? Some of them were, you know, we can wait till we get back. Some of them were just like, yeah, sure, let's go ahead and do that. For a lot of the folks, let's say the in-person folks that, you know, ended up staying in Shanghai, or that wanted something, let's say right away, for me, it was more of a transition of telling them, okay, we have, let's say if they still had personal training sessions that were left that we weren't using, basically I let them know like, hey, this is what kind of remote coaching the price ranges are. Are you cool with just converting these sessions over into, let's say, whatever that remote rate would be? And pretty much all of them were just like, yeah, you know, let's go ahead and do it. Because I mean, they knew where I was coming from, and you know, the way that I approached it, I just approached it as an option for them, and never anything like, okay, let's. I just didn't see it as like as a sale type thing, you know. And it was like, hey, this is like an option, you know, let's convert to this. And they were all, you know, hey, let's do it, for the most part. So it wasn't so much of like a convincing type thing, is because they already had the knowledge of, you know, at least for me, what I was doing. And up front, basically, like I said, when it happened, I kind of went into this this nurture mindset. At least for me, it was more like, okay, let's communicate right away. You know, I don't know how long this is gonna be, or how long it's gonna take. You know, what do you need? What do you need from me?
And I think that's why so many people, it was so easy for them to make that switch, right? Is because you went into nurturing mode, you focused on your relationship, and it was, I'm presenting an option, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't, and it tells me like, guys, I don't know, or when it's not, we don't go back. We haven't been homies since like 94 or whatever year. But like, I can tell just by the way he's talking about his clients, like really focusing on building up a relationship with the client. And the way when you're talking about training, it's less about reps and sets and the program, and more about like, hey, how is this helping you? What are we doing? What can we do to help you get you to where you want to be? And when you provide solutions to the person, now it makes it a much easier game for you to change the landscape of where you're delivering that experience from in person to online. Because they're like, yeah, I'm still working with Erwin. I'm still getting the same experience. Like whether I'm doing glute bridges on the ground in my apartment, or I'm doing hip thrusts in the gym, right? Like it doesn't, I don't tell him what to do and how to make the program. So if he's putting it in there, it's clearly going to be the thing, right? So like they don't have to question it. It made it so easy for them to go, yeah, okay. Like, and you're it's one thing when you're presenting your in-person clients with like, well, what do you think would be fair, right? Like that just shows that you're just not
Yeah.
prepared versus you're like, hey,
Yeah.
do you want to convert this into this? Oh, yeah. Oh, you're already making it super easy for me. I literally have to do nothing. Yes.
Yeah.
I will do nothing. Right. And like,
Right.
because as soon as you have to tell them like, hey, do you want to make this next transaction for this? They're like, I don't know if I want to make another transaction, right? Like, I don't know where it's going on, but we're like, yeah, I'll just convert this money you've already spent with me into this. And now we go through. Oh,
Yeah. And
okay.
yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing. It really came down to that communication piece. And, you know, I don't know, like I said, people that are in a group model or even like an in-person model, my assumption would be is that if you're working in person and you have a, you know, X amount of clients already, that connection, that communication piece should be there, right? Or at least ideally it should be there, right?
Yep.
You would hope that would be there. And, you know, in terms of like just figuring out, you know, what is it that they need and, you know, how you can help, the conversion piece, it you know, you would hope it'd be kind of easy in that sense, you know, assuming that, you know, finances and all that kind of stuff work out. But,
Yep.
you know, like I said, for the most part, even on the remote side, everyone was just really just business as usual, even with the gyms closing, et cetera, you know?
Talk to us, excuse me. Talk to us about what the difference between coaching someone in person versus remote and how you create an experience for both. And I think now that's probably more highlighted than ever because now a person who does in person is now feeling remote coaching. And how do you
Yeah.
make sure they still feel the same nurturing Erwin that they're used to accustomed to getting?
Right. I think it comes down, let's say, okay, so for in-person, because even with in-person people, you know, I had just, you know, I'd met them for the first time at some point, right, in an initial consultation. For me, what I like about being in person is the fact that, you know, you have the 60 minutes that you're there to train, and there's always that those little conversations that you can have with them in person, right? Obviously, every client that I work with in person has a, you know, different personality. So, you know, as an in-person coach, you kind of have to know what hat to put on at different times, and it's about just really reading body language and understanding that. So in terms of the experience for them versus the, you know, people online, I really just try to keep it the same in the sense of, you know, the language that I have with people in person. How do I communicate that same language to someone that's just going to be seeing something written down, let's say via TrueCoach and, you know, in the app? I try to read it like in terms of, let's say, like if I have certain clients, trying to read personalities and whatnot, and then you figure out, okay, maybe I'm going to respond to this person in a certain way online. You know what I mean? Like how you're going to give like directions and whatnot. But for me, like let's say for online and, you know, in person, like I said, the people that I work with in person and right now, when we converted into online, it just felt like carrying on the same conversation, right? So what in terms of that, it's more so just kind of setting the expectation of how this is how we're going to communicate, right? We're going to communicate in this fashion via online. I'm going to, you know, talk to you this many times, depending on, you know, how often, you know, we get to speak, and pretty much again, just following up with them in terms of like, you know, if especially during this time, during the, you know, the COVID time, it was more like, okay, if we were talking to each other remotely once a month, you know, I'm gonna do a little bit more of kind of prodding and being like, how you doing? You know, you know, how everything's going. And if that meant like, okay, I'm gonna go off the script here and like it's okay to text message me now, you know, versus like, oh, we're only gonna talk on TrueCoach, and that's fine as well. So for me, it was more so with both the in-person and online, just having more interaction in terms of navigating the entire thing. I don't know if that answered the question completely,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. 100%. No, it's helping because a lot of people are in that boat, right? They get caught up in like, oh, right? Because the way I'm explaining it to people is there's two different models. There's the, okay, if you're an in-person coach, or maybe if you're a hybrid coach, you need a solution to get your in-person people up and running to have that revenue stream up and going and staying consistent. And if that's delivering through TrueCoach and delivering them workouts, great. but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be a remote coach going forward with those people, as much as I'd necessarily love it, because having a remote coaching business and having an in-person business are two different things. And they're, I mean, yes, the in-person thing can feed the remote funnel. You can meet someone in person, like, yeah, I coach you remotely, but right, like the remote piece doesn't necessarily always feed the in-person. So you have to have different streams of how you're getting those people. And then again, you might work with different people, right? Like in person, you might be a return to play person and you do a ton of like hands-on, like very small cueing, and because you want to create that experience. Whereas online, you're like, yeah, maybe you teach more, you do more metabolic conditioning stuff, or you do more Olympic lifting stuff, or whatever it is, right? Because it allows you that extra unit of business. So yeah, just trying to give people an idea as to what the landscape looks like. And when you do make those switches, right? Because I want them to hear that, like, yeah, it's not about making this grandiose switch right now. It was about just like giving them an option to help them, right?
Yeah.
And
I'd say, because like for the most part, even those people that I was working with, let's say in person, in terms of how I met them first, they were people that mostly that really didn't know anything about working out, right?
Yeah.
So for them, it's like, okay, they needed someone hands-on. And even with those people, you know, even before this, some of them had already converted into remote clients because they had, okay, I was able to learn this. And for me, I told them like, listen, you know, we could work one-on-one or in person as, you know, as much as you like. But know that I'm telling you, if you ever wanted to do something remotely, like you have the okay for me, you know, I would, you know, that, you know, so I said like, there's the option for you. So you can still work online, but know that I think that you are moving well enough. I think that we've done what we needed to do for you to go to, you know, work remotely. And if you want to do that as an option, that was an option for them to do also.
Totally. Yeah. Because I mean, it's different, right? You have to have a whole different allowances as a remote coach. Like, ooh, did I teach you how to troubleshoot yourself to where like, oh, that hip doesn't feel good when you're squatting? Yeah, put the barbell off your back and put it in the front, right? Or grab a goblet or something in that situation.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Talk to me about what's going outside. Is there like just this massive like storm? There's like pink lightning running across. I'm like, is this just China lights?
It sounded like there was a little bit of thunder and lightning. I did see the flashes from behind. I was like, oh yeah, but yeah, that's that's a China light. We have the Shanghai metro that's out there too, so it's passing by. But yeah, it did sound like there's a little bit of rain coming in.
Yeah, I just saw these pink flashes across the sky. I was like, damn, are we about to see an apocalypse over there on screen?
Right.
Just Godzilla comes out of the water. Like, oh,
it's coming
damn.
out.
Yeah. Talk to us, and you don't have to mention it by actual number, but talk to us about how you the pricing strategy and how you do your pricing for in-person and commitment, and then also the online the commitment that you ask for, and then how you transition the people financially from in-person to online, and just making that a really easy transition.
Right. So for me, in terms of you know, I don't mind like with the in-person, I really just kind of took a look at, you know, the number one, the market that I was in, right? So I had an idea of kind of what my worth was, in terms of like, let's say the education I did, the experience that I had. So out of the gate, I was just like, this is, for me, let's say it wasn't going to be worth it to do online if I was going to undercharge what I felt that, you know, that I wanted.
100%.
At the same time, by putting it at, you know, a certain price point, that let people know that, number one, this is the price point that I want, or that, you know, the people that I want to work with. And for me, I also felt that it's like, you know, at this price point that it's going to be, I only want a handful, right? So I wasn't looking for like 20 people or anything like that to work in person. You know, I had done that like in the past. So I was like, okay, I just want this many people. This is the price point it's gonna be. So it's gonna be like $100 a session. Let's say US dollar conversion in that. And basically, when I looked at, okay, what do I want to price remote coaching at? What I did, I pretty much just kind of looked at, okay, what were other people doing? So I think when I first started off 3 years ago, I was just like, okay, $200 seemed like the normal, I guess, like for remote coaching, for what other people doing. And after that first year, I just kind of took a look at, okay, you know, is there, from what I'm already offering remotely, you know, feeling more confident with, you know, what I was doing, plus like obviously having to having other expenses that running the remote business on, I put it, okay, we're going to go to this amount now. Right. So, starting off in terms of, let's say, the personal training and remote, I just had, okay, this is what I feel that I'm worth in person. I took a look at pretty much what I had to cover and in terms of, let's say, rent, and then how many clients that I could feasibly, take on. And then that's just the price that I set it on. For me, I had experimented in the past in terms of working with folks on certain tiers. So like if you had 5 sessions or whatever, it'd be more expensive. 10, it gets a little bit less expensive. And what I actually realized is that I was working a lot more hours and making less, if that makes sense. Cause like it just didn't work out. It's like, well, that was pretty stupid. So pretty much I just said, okay, it was pretty much just like, what I ended up doing is like, okay, this is if you're just doing 1 hour, 1 session, this is what the price was. And then if you do blocks of 15, this is what the price was. So that's what I priced it at. And then in terms of remote, for me doing remote is that I always felt that like, I never wanted to approach it as something as in a month to month, only because I felt it was so easy to be like, okay, do a month. You don't really know what's going on. That's 4 weeks. You write a 4-week block out. It's like, that's like just some changes are just getting started. So my thing from there was always like, I wanted 6 months is how I set my, the pricing from there. So 6-month commitment up front. So for me, that also allows me to have, some capital reserve, right? But also at the same time knowing, don't touch that. You know what I mean? It's like, that's, that was the biggest thing for me. And, the clients that I attracted and that I, took on once, like I said, the communication piece, once, I had those as talking points, none of them really questioned it too much. The people that, let's say heard the pricing, and obviously you understand if, finances are a thing and they say it was too expensive, that's fine. No problem. The biggest thing for me is like, where I am, like if you ever, change your mind, this is what you can do. And, even on the remote side, after certain consultations that they had to wait and they didn't know it was for them, the biggest thing for me was that, I've had people come back later on, months down the line. It's like, oh, hey, let's have another conversation,
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, that's the exact game right there, is keeping the window open, right? People have got shit going on. People got life going on. But if you're such a hard closer all the time, and there's a time and a place to like press on someone to close them, to get them out of their own way, right? But like you have to earn that right. But if you don't leave the window open for them to come back, right, then maybe you tarnish the relationship that they had with fitness. Maybe you were the only good thing in fitness and they just needed clients don't have our relationship with fitness, and not all coaches have good relationships with fitness, to be honest, especially when you start getting burnt out and everything else. So no, that's really awesome, man. I love too that you have a commitment too with your in-person stuff too, right? You ask for a 3-month commitment up front.
Yeah. So basically, what I tell them is that in terms of the commitment, it's 3 months, right? So I'll position to like where our sessions are in 15 session blocks. They don't have to pay that up front, but my expectation from them is that, hey, I set that expectation like, okay, like if we have 15 sessions, we're either going 2 to 3, per week. Because that's what I expect. Like I said, for me, I set that expectation up front that I wasn't, I didn't want to work with people that were flaky and whatnot. So they got that from the beginning. So it was minimum, okay, if we're working in person, 3 months. And a lot of them were just like, okay, it came down to really figuring out, what they wanted. And then for me to be able to communicate that to them, like, what we were going to do to try to get them there.
Yeah. Yeah. Now in this spot that we're in right now, and you've had the luxury and the awesome opportunity for people to come with you and maintain a nice even keel pretty much with your business. Are you equally trying to service and grow right now, or are you just worried about servicing the people that you have?
So that's actually a good question. Because it's like I said, when it first came out, what everyone was doing now, right? Like I sent a message out there, and I was only really talking to people within like China and Shanghai, like, hey, if you have nothing to do, let me offer this. Because my wife, she's she's a international school teacher here. So they had actually transitioned into e-learning themselves. So it was actually kind of interesting to see what they were doing. So I pretty much put it out there because I knew that teachers were going to be indoors. It's like, hey, 2 weeks of, program, just shoot me an email or a message if you want to do it. I'll set you up on TrueCoach. All I ask is like, fill out a quick survey at the end. I only had 2 people sign up for that, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
but
Do more
so
than
with
none.
that, it's like, hey, yeah, exactly. And so with them, it's like, hey, you know what? It's only 2 you. Let me extend it for a full month. So I did a full month of workouts for them. And for me, I was like, okay, at least now they know what I do. You know what I mean? Which is cool.
Yeah.
In terms of the selling aspect, because when it came to the States, or when it blew up in the States, let's say I think it was like last week, pretty much, right?
Last week.
Yeah, every like you saw it, like Instagram, everything was going for it. So for me, I actually asked another mentor of mine. I asked him like, hey, how are you navigating this? Because he's a remote coach as well, and he was straight up. It's like, you know what? He didn't feel that right now is necessarily the time to, I guess, hardcore trying to grow the business per se.
Yep.
The biggest thing that you can do is go the extra 10-20% with the clients that you have right now, whether they're in person, whether they're online, and really try to nurture and service that to the best of your ability.
Yep.
What I got from that is pretty much, he said, really just stick to the 20%, because that other 80% as of right now, there's things that are out there for them, right? It may not necessarily be the buying market, but right now, and this is how, how after talking to him, it's like, okay, that really makes sense. What I'm harvesting the soil, quote unquote, is what he said, think about it as a time to harvest the soil, right? Take this time to nurture, help the people that you can, whether it's through, content, putting yourself out there, not necessarily offering things for free per se, but, asking people like, what is it that you need from me? If it's some type of education, maybe I'm going to put out a post about, hey, you can do this, thing about home workout in this way. So for me, I really just stuck to, okay, this is happening now. I'm not going to worry about upfront trying to build a business. I'm going to let kind of what I'm doing right now, hopefully when this is all said and done, now people will see that, and that I've done that. It's like, hey, I want to refer you to Erwin or whatnot, or, let's work, because they've seen that, you know what I mean?
Yep.
That's been at least my approach on it right now.
I 100% support that message, what you're doing, adding value first and foremost, focusing on the 20%, being a resource, right? Like that's where the person who's going to win coming out of this is that they were just being the most helpful, right? Their brand is built off of being helpful during this time. And people have to remember that just that brand may not have been successful without this time, right?
Yeah.
And the more you are about like, hey, buy this, it looks really thirsty versus you sending that email out to those people where it's like, hey, here's 2 weeks. If you're into this, let me know, right? Here's value, here's an offer. It's no hold bar. It's not pressurized, right? And it's like, if this is what I do, if I can help you during this time, let me know. And if not, cool, maybe you'll come back to me, right? And that's the difference. And for you now, like, adding 2 people is awesome, right? And that's, more money than you were going to have before without those 2 people. And it offsets some of those people that didn't come over. So I think that's a huge lesson for people to learn is, going into it with value, focusing on what can you do to be of service? How can you help? Because as trainers, as coaches, we have to remember our job is to be the guide, the coach that helps people develop better relationships with their fitness and bodies. And right now, we're being tested with that. That is our job as professionals, is to help people, right? We signed up for that.
Yeah. And even, even with the whole thing, when it was going down, personally for me, I forgot, I think Jim Kroll actually, he said this, like, I don't know when I heard it, but how would you prepare for something like if shit just hit the fan, right? What would you do? Would you have like a backup? And like shit's hit the fan, right? Let's say shit's hit the fan. So for me, as a coach, I think other coaches can really look at this too. And I mean, now that it's here, how are you gonna rise to the top? And what are you gonna do to make yourself better, right? That the whole growth mindset mindset aspect of it is taking what we have, or what I have is like, okay, let's run with this. How am I going to come out of this being a better coach, better business person? And trust me, I'm not a business or marketing guy at all. That's something that's my weakest point. You know what I mean? So I mean, now within the last 2 months, I've been at home like, oh shit, I get time to read all this stuff. Try to implement things here and there, and that's pretty much what I'm really hoping to get out of the whole thing.
Nice. Hey, for business books for y'all, if you guys are looking for a book, Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller, best marketing book ever. It's been one of my go-tos, something I really very appreciate the message. Zero, Ready, Aim, Fire is probably one of my favorite business books, overarching startup books. Check those two out for those of you guys who are in the same boat. It's harder for me to say that message where it's like, yeah, use this time to get better. Because like I do want people to use TrueCoach, right? But like, yep, we no longer have the ability to ever say, I never had time to do that. I would have read that book, I just didn't have time. Or I would have started that blog, but I didn't have time. I would have cleaned my closet out, but I didn't have time. And you're like, nope, everybody got time. Right?
Yeah, a lot of time now.
So yeah, I appreciate that, man. Let me know if I can ever do anything to help you. I really appreciate you sitting down with us, telling us your story, adding so much value to coaches. Guys, reach out to Erwin if that's something you're cool with, and learn and connect. And if you're in China, hit him up. And that's what this is all about. It's about community. I know I definitely want to come out to China and kick it with you. And so it's one of those things that I'm just so grateful that we have these amazing people all around the world to share stories, and that you can help provide guidance and leadership to the coaches here in the States or wherever they're at in the world, and help highlight like, hey, they're a couple months ahead of us. He's still alive. He still looked good. The moneymaker looks straight. He's got his blue, black, and glasses on. Things are good. So, Erwin, thank you so much. Where can people find you? Where can people get in touch with you if they want to chat with you more?
Yeah, so they can send me an Instagram message over. It's ALFA_coaching. Alpha is ALFA_coaching. Or they can shoot me an email. I'll shoot that over to you if you want to put that up, or if you want, I can give it out. It's Erwin@alpha-coaching.com. ERWIN.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for joining us, Erwin. Such a pleasure to chat with you. I hope we get to hang out in person one of these days really soon when all this shit's done.